What is going on, everybody? Back again today to bring you all another video talking about DC Comics. I released my video talking about death metal. I said I was done talking shit on DC. That's true. Like I'm not gonna like talk about where they're going wrong with the story. This is more of a video. This isn't even really talking shit. This is just me adding credit to what I'm saying. So, there's this like online company. I don't really know what it is. I don't quite understand it. I'll tell you what I do understand of it. It's called ICB2. They it's this company that takes in statistical data, uh, numbers of sales and profits. They take in statistical data and they create hypothetical models, like predictive models of like what they think is going to happen. They There's some data that they've collected on DC, and I took notes of it. It's really two things that illustrate my point here. So in December of 2021, right now, currently, well, I don't know about currently, but in December of 2021, and it's probably still not too different now. DC was publishing approximately 90 comic books a month. And in December, I'm pretty sure they published roughly around 90 books. Um, Out of the top 18 comic books, top 18 selling comic books for the month of December, only 5 of them were DC. Think about that. You're putting out 90 in that month, and only 5 of them make the top 18. Now there were some Image Comics titles in the top 18, like a few, not too many though. Most of it was Marvel, just dominated by Marvel. And then here's another piece of information that ICB2 noted. Out of the top 50 DC books, just DC, out of the top 50 DC comics released in December of 2021, only 2 of them were not Batman or Bat related. So what does this tell us? Well, it tells us that the popular opinion of comic book readers and just people in general, the mass populace, is not with DC. It's not popular. People aren't going to it. They would rather go to Marvel, and if they want something different than Marvel, they're more likely to go check out Image, Dark Horse, something different, unique. They're not going to DC. And then the stuff it also tells us that all DC really has going for it is Batman. And I hesitate to say that because the more we say that as a fan base, the more we say that and the more DC hears that, the more they're going to think, oh, well, then we just need to double down on Batman. No, we don't want you to double down on Batman. We want you to actually sit down, figure out what it is about everything fucking else you're doing, like everything you're doing with Superman, Wonder Woman, Justice League, Flash, Green Lantern, Teen Titans, everything you're doing with everything other than Batman that's making it not appeal to people. We want you to fix that shit. We don't want you to just, oh, they say all we got's Batman, we better double down on Batman. No, we want you to go fix shit. But the problem lies with it has to do with the movie franchise. It really does. So the reason Marvel kills the game is because of their highly successful film franchise. That's just the way it is. It helps. It brings in so much money. Like, just, I know that those movies are very expensive to make. They spend a lot of money making Marvel movies with all the costumes, special effects, the big name actors now that are parts of it. They cost a lot of money, but they bring in even more. Like, I would love to know just how much money has been generated, has been brought into Disney and Marvel due to those movies. It is an unfathomably large amount of money. It's billions. Billions plural, billions of dollars. And here's the thing you have to understand. A rising tide raises all ships. Money, when you have a corporation like Disney and it owns all these sub-companies like Marvel and Star Wars, Lucasfilm, all that, money gets brought in and it all gets piled up at the top and pooled together. And then the big executive, high ranking people who rule the corporation at the top, they then make agreements on budget. They look at how much they have in this big ass pot, and they go, okay, that division, that company can have that much, that division can have that much this year, that can have that much, and they piecemeal it out. So if the Marvel movies are bringing in all of this money, it helps everyone, and that includes Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics, because of how successful the movies have been, Marvel Comics has so much autonomy and freedom to just do whatever. And yet they still manage to be good somehow, not just in terms of sales. I actually think Marvel Comics is still doing pretty good story-wise. I happen to think that. So, is that due to the increased freedom that they have? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's more just like due to the increased popularity of Marvel overall with the movies, the people working at the comics, they're kind of able to go, what is it about the movies that they like? And let's then just try to replicate that with the comics. It's no coincidence that right around the time the Civil War movie came out, Marvel Comics wrote a Civil War II event. It's not a coincidence. They did it on purpose, So, yeah. And then on top of just the fact that the movies bring in so much money and then some of that gets piecemealed back out to Marvel Comics, it's not about that. They also make some money themselves, and that is also in part due to the movies. People go see Infinity War, the movie, and then they get a little intrigued and they want to go sample some of the source material. So they go to the comic book store and they take a chance on the Infinity War comic. Maybe they finish it, maybe they don't, but they spent the money. Or they order it off Amazon or whatever the fuck it is, or the movie. There's a lot of them that have come out. Winter Soldier, they get interested in that, so they want to go read about their Captain America Winter Soldier, or the Spider-Man, so they check out Ultimate Spider-Man. They venture into the source material because the movies, kind of get their interest. And then they go venture into the comics, the source material. So that helps boost sales. So the movies are helping. DC they haven't figured it the fuck out. They don't have the successful film franchise to guarantee them massive profits so that the comic books can relax. And, in the past 10 years, there was an era of DC Comics where they were doing really well. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think it's just, I don't think it just happens this way. It's a coincidence that the best era of DC Comics was the one where it was just all one streamlined, very linear, streamlined, cohesive narrative. The greatest era of DC Comics that's most popular takes place from 1986 all the way up till 2011. That's the greatest era of DC Comics. And it's because pretty much everything during that time, I get it, in 2006 the multiverse returned, and then later on in 2008 they became aware of its return. But that's so small. You're still going from 1986 to 2006. That's 20 years. That is and even after the multiverse came back, it really didn't start playing a major role until Flashpoint, until in 2011. So DC had its best run during those years, those 20-something years where it was one universe, one story, one cohesive narrative, linear. That's not a coincidence. It's people like continuity, people like linear narrative. It makes the story better. Any story that is easy to follow, it's going to be much more well received than a story that is difficult to follow. So it's better to make your story easy to follow. You got to find the right line to tread, a balance between, it has to be complex enough of a story to be entertaining. It can't just be some simple dopey shit for 3-year-olds, but it needs to be followable. Marvel's cracked that code. You look at the movies, they're just complex. There's just enough complex shit going on in the movies for it to be interesting and engaging, but it's still super easy to follow. No one is confused in a Marvel movie, I don't think, ever. So that's really the thing. And what do we have going on right now with DC? Batman. the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson Batman movie. They're doubling back down on Batman. It's exactly what I was afraid is going to happen. And it's just a solo Batman thing. You know, it's not like him part of the Justice League. They've pretty much, it seems like they've just given up on their film franchise. Like, as a franchise. You know, we saw some shit at, DC Fandom. They talked about, there's going to be an Aquaman sequel, and there's going to be the Flash movie, and there's going to be a Black Adam movie and a Blue Beetle movie. There was no talk about a Justice League movie. There was no talk about, how is this going to how are we going to fix this shit? And as far as we know from leaks that have, like, supposed leaks that have shown up online, the Flash movie it's going to be like a nice send-off for Ben Affleck. Like, he's coming back for one last time, and then they're going to kind of do away with him. But the other leaks, which is fine, I want a younger Batman, but it doesn't sound like we're getting it. According to the leaks, Michael Keaton is going to become the new, like, Bruce Wayne of the DC movie universe. But he's not really going to be Batman. He's going to be like, I'm really too old to be doing the Batman thing. So in terms of who is actually out in Gotham City wearing the cape and cowl doing the Batman stuff, it's going to be Batgirl. That's not what we want either. So it looks, and then Henry Cavill, apparently, according to these leaks, is out as Superman. He's not coming back. So really, it's just fucked. It's so fucked. And the reason that it's fucked is because, like I said, they failed to get their movie franchise off the ground. Since they don't have their movie franchise, it's hurting their comics. There's also, like, there's been this civil war going on at DC Comics over the years. But, like, let's talk about the civil war at the comics. So, like, 2011 happens, and they decide to reboot DC completely. Shake the Etch-a-Sketch, reboot it. Except they don't really commit to that. And they start referencing, before too much time goes by, they start referencing shit prior to 2011 that's not supposed to be canon anymore. Everything was, we shook the Etch-a-Sketch. It's supposed to be a complete fresh start. But they start referencing old shit. People are not committed to this idea of a fresh start. They're not cooperating with it. Enough time with that goes by, and eventually they go, okay, well, fuck it. Let's write a story that restores the old continuity, the good one from 1986 to 2011. Let's write a story that restores that. So they get to work writing that story and restoring the old universe. But then that story, the one that's meant to fix everything, that turns out to be super late. So then what do they do? Well, they turn to the one guy at DC at the time who, in the past 10 years, the only guy to have written arguably really good DC material since they did this big change. They turned to him and they're like, hey, what do you got? The thing we had planned is late. It's taken too long. What do you got? And then he started them down this other path. And his path, this new path that he started them down, it wasn't, hey, this is a way to fix shit. It was more, here's a way to keep things fucked up. Because it turns out he liked them fucked up more than he liked them fixed. When we talk about fixing DC versus fucking it up, you have to understand that the fans, at least as far as I can tell, the fans and the creators at DC Comics are not on the same page. What we consider fucking it up, they consider fixing it. And what they consider fixing it, we consider fucking it up. So, like, whereas we're like, take it back to a much more, you can still have the multiverse, it can be done, you just got to use it sparingly and use it wisely, but take us back to a linear, cohesive narrative where everything is well established in a solid continuity, and the people over at DC are like, no, we don't want to do that because we like fuckity fuck artsy fartsy creative freedom bullshit, and we want to be able to just tell random ass fucking DC stories any which way that we want all the fucking time, and we don't want to have to worry about them making sense together or going together. We just want to be fuckity fuck creative artists, artsy fartsy people. And the fans are like, yeah, but we want the story to make sense. And they're like, yeah, but we want our creative freedom. We worked our way up in this career field. We want to do the job. We want to have this creative job where we get to just do whatever we want. There are no wrong answers, and we get paid buku bucks to do it. And us, the fans, are going, no, we don't want to pay you for that. We don't want to pay you for that because it doesn't make sense. And so there's this contest between the creators and the fans, but then there's also a contest within DC. It's pretty resolved as of right now, but there's this contest in DC of like creators butting heads. They went through a huge shuffling of they got rid of a ton of executive people a while back. Dan DiDio, he left DC, but there were a lot of reports saying that he was like straight up just fired, like get the fuck out. Um, I don't know if I really think that's a good thing or a bad thing. I heard he had some sketchy ideas for DC called like 5G, so maybe it's better that he's gone. But it seems like the the attitude at DC right now, the one that has won, the attitude and ideology that has triumphed in the end, is the ideology of creativity is more important than continuity. And that's only going to continue to hurt them. You know, uh, I kind of understand why they feel that way. The reason they feel that way is because like they do want to be creative and they want to have creative freedom, but the pressure's on for them to sell, and the reason the pressure's on them more so than it is on like the people over at Marvel Comics is because DC doesn't have a fucking successful film franchise. So it's all like a domino effect. If DC got its film shit together, then the comic book people could relax. And since they could relax, the fans would they could tell creative stories, but the fans wouldn't be so upset when they don't make sense because it's like, okay, look, you don't need to come to the comics for your cohesive linear narrative. You can go to the movies for that. Comics is like a rough draft. It's where we're just pumping out creative ideas that can then be later on adapted into the movie universe, and the movie universe is where you get your linear cohesive narrative, not in the comics. And fans would be like, oh, okay. As long as the fans get a linear cohesive narrative of DC somewhere. It could be in comics, it could be in animated TV shows or animated movies, it could be in live action TV shows and movies. As long as we get an overall encompassing, linear, cohesive narrative of DC, we're fine. But we don't have it right now, so a lot of us are looking at the comics to do it. And the comics don't want to do it because that takes away from their creative freedom. So really it comes down to the movies have to get their shit together, but I don't think they ever will. It all really fucked up. It all really came to a head when we saw just how underwhelmingly Batman v Superman performed at the box office. Like, the first time Superman and Batman are together in a movie in live action and it does that bad, especially when that amount of money was spent on it. Wow. And like a lot of people have come to Zack Snyder's defense regarding the DCEU and the film franchise, and now that we've seen Snyder Cut, they're like, oh, see, he has good ideas, it's not his fault. No, like he has good ideas, but he had one idea in there that fucked everything up. And basically this is his idea. Batman v Superman is going to be like almost like a part 1 to Justice League. And then he originally intended Justice League to be part 1 and part 2 itself. So it's almost like this 3-part series. And then Man of Steel is what sets up Batman v Superman. But Man of Steel is in and of itself a pretty self-contained movie. It's a trilogy. It's like Batman v Superman, Justice League Part 1, Justice League Part 2. That was kind of what it was originally intended to be in his mind. No. But it's not that couldn't have worked. It's the way he went about it. It's you watch those movies. You watch Batman v Superman, and then you watch Snyder Cut, like you can watch on HBO Max. You get the idea that even though when you watch them together, you watch Batman v Superman, especially if you watch the extended edition. You watch the extended edition of Batman v Superman, and then you immediately watch Justice League like the next day. You kind of come away from it going like, okay, I see what he was going for here. But you got to remember that between theatrical releases of films, there's like a year to 2 years. So it's like Batman v Superman hits theaters. It's not the extended edition, so it's the even shittier version. And people are just left wondering. From then, Justice League was originally supposed to premiere at the end of 2017. So like a year and a half after Batman v Superman. So yeah, people go see this really shitty version of Batman v Superman. Like shittier than like the shittiest possible version. Because the extended edition is like C+, and the theatrical cut is like straight up D- to F. So it's bad. They go see this shit, and then for a year and a half, they're just kind of like, where the fuck is this going? And then, of course, Zack Snyder knew where it was going. He's like, don't worry. They're confused now, but all they gotta do is go see Justice League when it comes out, and it's gonna make sense. Well, then his version of Justice League didn't even get to come out right away. We got Joss Whedon's Fucktown version of Justice League. And there's a whole bunch of shit about that blowing up now. Ray Fisher's accusing him of being super unprofessional and like psychologically, emotionally abusive and shit. I could kind of see it. If you look at Joss Whedon, he kind of looks like a fucking, gamma male, little fucking gamma male dude who's now been given a ton of fucking power. And as we all know, when you give a gamma male dude like power, they abuse it. They've never known power and influence before in their life. So now that they don't know how to handle it. And that's exactly who Joss Whedon seems like to me. So I kind of believe it. I believe Ray Fisher. But that's beside the point. The point is, we got Joss Whedon's weird Fucktown version of Justice League. That made it even less sense. That made it seem like DC just doesn't have a fucking clue what they're doing. Zack Snyder had a clue. He just... he trusted... How do I put this? He took the DC fan base of the world for granted. He did. Because he made Batman v Superman, which even in the extended edition, even in the better version, he made that movie and he did not make it complete and cohesive and coherent. He made it as like, look, we could just make this fucking movie. Just make this fucking movie. It doesn't matter if they get it and understand it or not, because it's fucking DC. It's Superman and Batman. It's the greatest superheroes of all time. So we're guaranteed to get them to come back for the Justice League sequel. And once they do that, then they'll understand. They don't need to understand here, because they'll understand when they come back for the next movie, and they are definitely coming back from the next movie. He took that for granted. He assumed that and took it for granted, and we proved him wrong. Because... based on, like, how many people really knew about, other than the diehard fans, how many people really knew about all the bullshit that went on making the original cut of Justice League? About Zack Snyder and the tragedy him and his family went through, and him having to step away, and Joss Whedon coming in for reshoots and all the changes. How many people really knew about all that? I don't think very many. I think most people just chose not to go see Justice League for no other reason other than Batman v Superman had sucked. I think that's the only reason. So I think, you want to forgive Zack Snyder because you saw Snyder Cut and it's actually pretty good. Like, I'll admit it was pretty good, but at the end of the day, Zack Snyder fucked the DC film franchise because he took his audience for granted. He just assumed that we would just come along for the ride, He just assumed that we would trust him and trust that he's going to make good movies and that he's going to make sense of it all in the end and that it's all going to be worthwhile if we just blindly trust. Like, you don't really have that kind of credibility, Zach. Up until this point, your only fucking thing you'd done that was remotely successful was Watchmen was mixed reviews. Comic book fans kind of liked it, but also a lot of them didn't. It's mixed. A lot of people haven't even seen or heard of Watchmen. So then Sucker Punch, that was a weird fucktown movie. Like, who the fuck cares about that? Like, you don't have the strongest track record, you as a director. And then on top of that, I could kind of see how you think that the content of the movie, it being DC, Superman, Batman, some of the Justice League, the world's greatest superheroes, everyone knows these characters, so you just kind of assume that they're going to come back for the next one. They didn't, though, because you made the first one so fuckity fuck so much fuckity fuck nonsense that they didn't come back. They did not come back. People saw Batman v Superman, said, nope, fuck this, and then they did not come back. And you assumed they would. Zack Snyder assumed that they would. That's why he made these movies the way he did. He made them with the mindset of, we don't have to... Batman v Superman doesn't have to make too terribly much sense because they'll get it once they come back for the next movie. But they didn't come back. Like, Marvel earned that. You understand that? Marvel earned that trust by making a film they did slow, painstaking, bullshit, grindy work. It wasn't a fun artsy fartsy creative job for them. It wasn't rainbows and sprinkle fun time. It was motherfucking work. They built it up. They did motherfucking work. And they built that shit up piece by piece until they finally earned the fan base's trust, saying, hey, you guys have done so much good at this point. You've earned a little bit of like get away with murder. You've earned a little bit of get away with anything. So if you, albeit, you know, if you start fucking around and just producing shit movie after shit movie after shit movie, we're probably going to, you know, revoke that. But as of right now, Marvel, you've done so much good. At this point, we're comfortable taking a chance on anything that has the Marvel logo on it. So that, and they earned that. Zack Snyder and the DC content, the DC movie content, didn't earn it. They just assumed that they already had it. And that was its biggest downfall. And then also, like, I can sum up everything that was wrong with Batman v Superman. Very simple. It's oh shit, Batman's 45 and he's been Batman for 20 years. Do we get to see any of that 20 years? No. Damn, that sucks. Why is Lex Luthor acting so fucking stupid ass weird? That's just dumb shit. He shouldn't be doing that. Wait, Superman, why is his costume like black and muddy brown sometimes? You know? Hold on. So Lex Luthor makes he wants to kill Superman because why? Like something about his dad? Okay, then that's not explained very well. Wait, he made Doomsday in case Batman failed to kill Superman. But like, what was his plan to get rid of Doomsday? Because that dude had to go. Like, that dude couldn't stick around. Like, it's shit like, it's all that. Those were the problems. It had nothing to do with, oh, it has such a dark, mature tone. Nope. Have you seen Suicide Squad? That shit's violent, and that's a rated R movie. Have you seen the Peacemaker show? I mean, it's a TV show, so it doesn't get the same ratings, but that would be a rated R movie if it was a movie. You know, like, it can be done. I didn't really see much of a tone difference between the Snyder cut of Justice League and Batman v Superman. You know, it's the same tone. It's this dark, gritty tone. It's just sometimes it's the content itself. It's not the tone. It's the content. It's the dialogue. It's the plot. It didn't work. It was dumb, and it had a lot of fucking holes in it. But he was like, it'll make sense in the next movie. Don't worry, they're guaranteed to come back for the next movie, and it'll all make sense then. So that fucked the film franchise. Film franchise being fucked, now the pressure's on. The fans are looking to other alternatives. Hey, why don't we have a cohesive narrative in the DC animated movies? Hey, why don't we have a cohesive narrative in the DC comics? It's because these people, they're like, we don't want to do that. We don't want to have we don't want to worry about continuity. We want to be creative. Okay, well, then different writers and creators butt heads and editors butt heads and the fans and the creators, they butt heads. And that's where we're at right now. And that's how we end up with only, when they're publishing 90 books a month, only 5 of them are making the top 18. And out of the top 50 DC comic book series, only 2 of them are not Batman related. That's how we get to this point. Yeah. So, and I don't know what the way forward is here, because back in 2016 when they started the Rebirth stuff, it was very clear. It was like the way forward is to just take everything from the last, like from 2011 till now, and just scrap it, go back to the old shit. But there's a couple things that have been invented since then that we would kind of like to stick, like Jonathan Kent Superman. Like, I know there's a lot of controversy around him now that he's grown up and he's gay or whatever, like people are upset about that, but prior to when he was just a kid and he was Superboy, people liked the character and they want him to stick around. Damian Wayne was invented before. The Court of Owls, that came out of the New 52. That was dope. People want that to stick. There's stuff that has been created in the last 10 years of fuckery. The majority of the last 10 years of DC Comics has just been ultimate fuckery. But there's some little hidden gems in there that people want to stick around. So the question's like, how do we get back to a good, cohesive continuity without getting rid of all those things that have come out of this fuckery that we actually like? There are some things in there we actually like. We would like to keep those. I don't know how to do it. I really don't. Like, Dark Knight's death metal would have done it, so sort of, but it's just such a sloppily written story, especially that scene where they confront Darkfather. Like, pretty much everything, all of Darkfather's dialogue was just a DC Comics contradiction. Like, it was just shit. And then Dark Knight's death metal itself contradicts Doomsday Clock while at the same time acknowledging its existence. It's like Dark Knight's death metal basically goes, Doomsday Clock happened, but it does not at all make sense that it happened. So, yeah. I don't know. I think DC Comics is fucked unless they get something else going. I wouldn't look to the comics to fix themselves. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the comics are going to stay in this really discombobulated way, this way that they are, where they don't give a fuck about continuity and they're just telling wacky creative stories. And some of the stories they tell are going to be good, some are going to be bad. And that's fine, because comics, as we've learned from Marvel and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, comics should be serving as a rough draft. It's a source material. It's a place to get source material that you can then tweak and make adjustments to and use it as adaptation, as material in your live action film adaptation. You know, DC just doesn't have one of those, so people are looking at comics to make sense and be the big, awesome continuity. And comics don't want to be that. I would like to look at DC animation and be like, hey, if you guys don't want to get your shit together and make a live action DC franchise that has a strong continuity that everyone loves, why don't you do it in animated movie form? And they're kind of starting to, but they also like to take time and money to make random ass shit. Like this Catwoman movie that's about to come out that has like an anime art style and absolutely no one gives a shit about it. Batman Ninja, no one gave a fuck about that. What else? As far as I can tell, when it comes to the DC animated movies, the next one that is supposed to come out that's part of their new animated movie universe they're creating is the Green Lantern movie. And as far as I can tell, everyone's like, yo, can we just fucking get to the Green Lantern thing? But once again, the people over there making the animated movies, they're like here's comics, here's animated movies, here's live action film franchises. Like, comics and animated movies are down here, live action big budget film franchises are way up here. So these guys down here working in the animated movie division, they're still kind of like, yo, we don't really want to, like, we're doing it, we're making you some form of a continuity in these films, but we don't really want to do it. We also, just like the people over at the comics, we also enjoy our creative freedom, and we just want to make the movies that we want to make. We don't want to be bound to a continuity. Let the fucking film franchise do that. And I agree, we should, but we don't have one, so we're going to look at you other guys. I'm not going to look at comics. I've pretty much given up the idea of like comics are going to DC Comics is going to fix itself and be this awesome, really well put together story. I don't think that's going to happen in the comics. I do kind of look at the animated films to do it, but that's not because I think they're the best ones to do it. That's because I think they're our only hope. Because it's also pretty clear that the film franchise is not going to get its shit together, so it leaves our only hope is the animated shit. And like the DC animated universe that was created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, that's the closest thing we've ever gotten, I think, to something of like the MCU, but a DC version of it. The DC animated universe created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, it encompasses so much of the DC story. Like, every facet of it is included in there almost, except like the Teen Titans. I think that's the only one. And they've tried to be like, yo, we're continuing it. The DC animated universe is continuing. We've got 2 new comic book series that continue the story of the DC animated universe. We've got Batman, The Adventures Continue, and we've got the Justice League Infinity book. And I was excited for Justice League Infinity because I was like, cool, I will read these 2 books, and the DCEU, DC Animated Universe, Bruce Tim Paul Dini universe. That'll be my main DC continuity. Turns out though, like in order for that to happen, the Justice League Infinity one really needed to be good, and it's just not that good. It's okay. I give it like a C plus, but there's way too much inner monologuing, exposition, narration. There's not enough characters talking to each other and then doing shit. It's a lot of like one of the characters is having a bunch of inner thoughts and it's kind of narrating the comic. Nope, I want characters to talky with each other, banter, talk, banter, fight, do action stuff. End of the fucking story. I don't need this like inner monologue dissecting deeper themes and talking about what is the meaning of it all. No, pull your head out of your ass, stop smelling your own farts, just tell us a basic ass superhero story that's like a PG-13 level of content. When I say tell us a basic ass superhero story, I don't mean make it for kids. PG-13 level content is our sweet spot, guys. And this is just like, it's okay. Like I said, it's like C plus. It's like maybe B. I'll give it B minus. But since it's not like A plus material and people are not like just absolutely fucking raving over this, I kind of feel like it's going to get canceled. I fully intend to buy every issue until it does get canceled because I want it to keep going. But I just think it's a little pointless to put my faith in this because I think it's going to get canceled. Same thing with Batman Adventure. They managed to get to season 2 with Adventures Continue, but I think it's going to get canceled. But I will buy. I don't hate it. I in terms of true content and grade, I'm going to give it a B minus. But since my gut is telling me that it's probably going to get canceled, I'm dropping it to a C plus. Like that's kind of how it is. It's like I have to take a little bit of a grade off, a little bit of points off for the fact that it's just not. It's not worth getting into because it's not going to be around that long. At least that's what my gut's telling me. So yeah, DC Comics is failing. The numbers are clear. It's failing because we don't have a strong, cohesive, comprehensive continuity. We don't have a strong DC continuity in any form. Live action films, animation, comics, we don't have one. We don't have a strong, stable DC continuity for fans to follow. And that is important. That's something that fans want. Since we're not getting it in live action films, the fans are looking at comics and animation to do it. Those people don't want to do it. They want to be more creative, wacky, artsy, fartsy, tell random stories, especially in the comics. And it's causing a lot of headbutting. It's causing a lot of infighting at DC. It's just a problem. And I don't see a fix in the near future. The best possible solution, best case scenario, they actually, for the love of God, get their live action film franchise together. They actually get that shit together. That's best case scenario. I don't think that's going to happen, though. So I think more than likely what's going to happen is they're going to double down out of fear that Batman's the only thing they've got worth anything. They're going to double down on him. Everything else in DC is going to go by the wayside. People are going to start to lose interest in it at increasingly larger numbers until basically DC fades into this like level of obscurity. Like you ever go to the fantasy sci-fi book section at Barnes and Noble or any bookstore, and you see that there's all of these fucking sci-fi fantasy book series, but you just don't know a fucking thing about them. Guess what? Each and every one of those fantasy book series has its small little group of fans who read it and really like it. That's what DC is going to turn into. Which is nuts because it's fucking DC, but that's what it's going to turn into. Anyway, that's my video. That's my little rant. Take it for what you will. Leave some comments below. You agree, you disagree, you have differing opinions. If you like this video, please hit the like button. That really helps out the channel. If you want to help out the channel even more, hit that notification bell so you get notifications when I upload new videos. Check out some of my other videos. Maybe subscribe to the channel. But other than that, I will see you guys next time.